Yesterday, I talked about increasing the rate at which I work on projects, increasing the gradient of progress. Effectively, there's a rate of novelty that comes from an extremely fast pace of learning and a fast pace of making projects happen. And for me, there's sort of an activation energy that occurs once you get past a certain gradient, and it feels a lot more like an upwards shift in terms of pace. And I've been thinking about this idea because of something that my friend said a couple of weeks ago that's connected to this idea that I have rediscovered yesterday, which is that the speed at which you progress on a project is basically directly proportional to the amount of decisions you are able to make per given time period, like an hour or a day. And if you can increase the amount of decisions that you can make in a given period of time, then you can necessarily increase the speed at which you progress. And this idea is something that I think is going to be important in my ability to implement this increased rate of trying to do projects at a faster pace. And I think this is the thing that really is dopaminergic for me and really feels rewarding, is having a bunch of decision-making parameters that I have to go through in a day. I think having a bunch of time in order to ponder on decisions makes me feel a lot less motivated. And I do think I'd have an instinct to try to make the right decision by doing some research or pondering on a decision. But ultimately, I think that being more decisive is probably the best way to learn whether or not I've made the right decision and have that feedback loop feed into my ability to make decisions better in the future. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about this idea more broadly, the idea of how I can potentially increase the amount of decisions that I'm going to be making in my day in order to increase the speed at which I progress on things. And I thought about a couple of things that I think decrease my ability to make decisions extremely frequently. The first one is decisiveness. I think that there is something about just not having the decisiveness to just make a decision, commit to it, and instead of doing a bunch of pre-planning before you make a decision, deciding based on the 80-20 rule. So 20% of effort gets you 80% of the results. And then whatever that 20% of effort in terms of research gets you, you'll probably get broadly there. You'll be in the right ballpark. And then you can make micro decisions in order to adjust your position towards the goal. So even if the goal is right here and you make a decision to go this way, it's much easier to know you're going slightly the wrong direction and then adjust than it is to sit at the start line and figure out exactly how to calibrate where you're directing yourself. And so I think that decisiveness will be something that I'm going to try and practice in my ability to try and increase the pace at which I am working on projects. The other thing I think is pretty important when it comes to trying to increase the amount of decisions you can make in a day or in an hour is that every decision needs to be acted upon. And for most people, that means you have to make a decision and then you act on that decision. But if I can find ways to have decisions be disentangled from the actual acting on that decision, you can cram more decisions into the same time period. So what I mean by this, there's a couple of things that I think this can be implemented into. One is automation. So this is something that everyone really knows. If you are typing, you can type much faster than you can write physically. And so the advent of the typewriter and keyboards has definitely been a way that people can make decisions much faster than writing. Not to say that that's always a good thing. Sometimes slowing down and writing in order to ponder your decisions a little bit more is better. But there is a way in which technology can improve your ability to make decisions at a fast rate, because the actual acting on the decisions becomes something that is automated via technology. So whether that's a computer rather than writing, or it's probably some version of AI as well for certain tasks. And that doesn't mean that every decision being made extremely fast is correct, but I think if you're trying to improve your ability to increase decision making, there is something to be said about trying to disentangle the decision from the actual implementation of the work. The other way that you can do this is in a business or in an organization. This happens all of the time, in that decisions are made and then other people execute on those decisions within the team. And this can be, you can see this in like directing. A director can make a creative choice, and the director's job broadly on a set is to make creative choices all day long. And then those implementations are happening throughout the production. So if the director wants to try and emphasize a certain color because it's going to be connected to some broader theme in the story, it's the wardrobes, wardrobe, casting, set design, and the lighting and whatever. It's their job to try and incorporate that color into the actual scene, rather than the director going around finding which scarf is the right form of red or whatever. So you can see this across all organizations, but you have these decision makers that are trying to optimize their ability to make decisions really effectively. And then you have people who are trying to optimize their ability to execute on decisions really effectively. And so the dividing of the labor can also be a way that you can increase the amount of decision making that you can do in a given time period. And that's not to say that the people who are executing on decisions are not making decisions of themselves. It's that the micro decisions that are being executed on are not, they are fine-tuning their ability to make those decisions. So for example, if someone wants to make a creative decision on set, the implementation of that creative decision will come with 1,000 other questions, but those questions are going to be decided by the people who have really fine-tuned their ability to make those types of decisions. So the cinematographer will be able to choose what type of lens, what type of camera, what type of etc. that they are going to use, but that is downstream from a decision that the director is making. And in a similar way, you see this in organizations and in team sports. Every person is optimizing for the decisions that they're extremely good at, and they are trying to move the execution of that decision onto other people whose decision making around the execution is much better. So this is a bit of a tangent around decision making, but I think that trying to tune myself to be able to be more aware of which decisions I am extremely good at, and trying to find people or tools that can help me increase my ability to make those decisions, the ones that I'm extremely good at a much faster rate, and hand over the reins for other decisions to other people, will be a really important part of trying to increase the pace at which I can move. And I think there are other things that you can do, which is just the improvement of your decision making. And I think one for me is increasing your ability to think and increasing your ability to get better at thinking and making decisions. And then the other thing is having confidence in your decisions. I think one thing that I also need to improve on in terms of the projects that are much slower paced in my life is basically making really concrete decisions much faster by being more confident in the decisions I'm making. And even if I'm not more confident in the actual decision I'm making, I think I need to be confident in my ability to adjust if I have made wrong decisions. And I think there is this idea that I am reminded of when I'm talking about this just now, which is there's two-way doors and there's a one-way door. And most decisions are two-way doors. If you walk through a door, you can walk right back out if the decision's wrong. But there are some very small amount of decisions that are one-way doors. And those one-way doors are the ones that you should really be thinking about more seriously. But ultimately, a lot of things you can just reverse. You can quit a job. You can just change your mind at any point and completely change your life if you need to. And there are very few one-way doors that you have to go through in your life. And those are the ones that you should really seriously think about. And the frame of all of this that I've been thinking about this in is making videos on Answer and Progress primarily. And one of the things that I have noticed is that I have a somewhat lack of confidence now in my ability to tell stories. And so my storytelling confidence is much lower than the other types of decisions that I have to make in my job and in my life. And that means that my ability to make decisions fast and with conviction in the storytelling realm when I'm writing or when I'm trying to figure out what a video is much slower. And I think I need to really improve that. And I think the other thing about that is sometimes I think I just feel a lot more lost about what is the right decision around storytelling. And I think I need to start consuming great storytelling again. I think one thing I have sort of neglected to do in the last few years is really consume a lot more material when it comes to storytelling. One thing that this exercise of posting every day has really helped me do is increase my ability to make decisions around shooting and also articulation and all this other stuff. And so just practicing my decision making around certain things has really helped my ability to do this part of the YouTube video process much better. And I think the other component of this will be to try and increase the structure and coherence of my storytelling and my compellingness of my storytelling. So I think that might be something that I start to try and practice in the future, because right now I think my storytelling really relies on my natural instincts and that's about it. And maybe I should do some more concerted thinking or reading or learning and just observing about storytelling or great storytelling. So maybe I'll start doing like little deconstructions of film or stories that I have recently watched, something that will help me study in public so that I am accountable to my ability to improve in this way. So that's my thoughts for today and how it connects to yesterday's idea about trying to move faster and that novelty of learning really being a core source of motivation. So yeah, those are my thoughts for today.